everybody, it's Yun Cannon, and I'm back today with Katherine Miller. She is a family law practitioner in New York and Connecticut, and I'm excited to have you on today's conversation. So, Katherine, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and share your 60-second elevator pitch?
Sure. I am Katherine Miller. I am on a mission to change how people divorce and help them divorce with dignity so that they can be the best people that they can be going through the divorce and show up as parents for their kids. Collaborative with a capital C. And really, what it is, a lot of people want to mediate, right? That they want to find a resolution in their divorce that's based on their own situation, their own values, what's most important to them. But they feel worried about not having the support of attorneys in the room. Maybe they don't know what they don't know. Yeah, and they're worried about that, or they feel that their spouse is a better negotiator, or does this for work, or anything like that. So they're like, oh, let me just retreat to the kind of traditional. And I really don't like to use that word when we talk about litigation and divorce, because traditional sounds like, home values, like it's better. It's not. And so collaborative is a process for divorce where each person has their own attorney, but the attorneys and their firms are disqualified by contract from litigating. So everyone in the room is 100% focused on finding a resolution that makes sense for this family, is bespoke for their situation, which of course a judge is trying to figure out a way to make these general law principles apply to this family. And we work through all of the issues, the parenting issues, the distribution of assets, the cash flow, what it's going to look like, but we do it in a conference room instead of a courtroom or on the courthouse steps. And it does allow to bring the best of both processes, where mediation, you're focused on the family and the individual interests of the participants, but with the supportive attorneys who are trained to support the negotiation process rather than the litigation process.
So you're always doing it in a conference room. The couples don't have to go and take this to court.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Wow, so much easier on the kids. So when I'm sure people ask you, how can they protect their kids? How do you walk them through that?
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting question. When I was a litigator many years ago, I realized that even when in litigation, even when people, parents and lawyers, everybody wanted to protect the children, it really was close to impossible to do that, because in a divorce, the knee bone's connected to the shin bone. And I often think of it as divorce as being like a knitting basket into which a kitten got and like played with all and so that the yellow thread yarn is mixed all up with the red and the blue and the green. So you pull on one thing, it's really hard not to also pull on the other colors. And that's what's true about children and divorces. It's really hard for them to not be really impacted and to really protect them. Why? Well, for one thing, people are worried about their kids. And so it's a natural pressure point to put in the negotiation. So if one parent feels afraid on money, might say, well, I'm not going to let you see the kids, or I'm going to tell or to talk trash to the kids in front of or even to the children, and so that's a really difficult thing to do. And so what we really try to do is separate out the issues around parenting and give the parents other outlets to talk about, to process, to negotiate the other terms in a way that really segregates out the parenting issues and does protect the children in that way. And often we recommend bringing in a parenting specialist who is a mental health professional, who is trained and experienced on working with children through the divorce process, who can advise the parents on ways that they can, in their particular situation, protect and continue to nurture their children together and separately through the divorce process.
Hmm. Gotcha. So when you go through this with your clients, and they're asking you, all right, maybe they're talking to a couple different family law attorneys. When they say, okay, what's different about working with you, Katherine? How can you share that with our audience?
Well, one thing is that we're very focused on the family, on the kids, on the client as a person. Not, I mean, it's very easy to say, oh, you're not just a file, you're a person. But let's think about what that means to you. And that means that we're thinking about the divorce in an integrative way. How does it impact the rest of their lives? How does it impact work? How does it impact where you're living? How's the timing of this negotiation, whether or not it's a litigation or a collaborative or a mediation or just, just a straight up negotiation? How's the timing of that going to impact your life? Now, here's like a way you can think about it is a lot of people think, well, the fastest I can get through this situation, the better. And it's true that the faster you can get to a place where everyone feels safe, the better. But after that, it might take some time and thought to really think through the details of the divorce and the details of what makes sense in terms of connecting that to raising your children, connecting that to your career, your job, or if you're going back to work, what you're going to do. Those kinds of things might really take some research and thought and time, because one of the things about the divorce negotiation unit is that unlike many negotiations, it takes a long time, right? You're going through, it's very complex. It involves a lot of things. It's not the buying and selling of a house or negotiating a new job. I mean, these things really take time, and it impacts each of us where we literally where we live, in our hearts and in our homes. And that really makes it makes sense to think about that in a progressive and sort of holistic way. And I don't know about you, but when I was younger, I really hated anxiety. And I don't love it today either. But I felt like, I think it's going to kill me. And if I don't do something to stop what's making me anxious, I really feel bad. And so I would like just cast around really fast. What can I do to make myself feel better? And I would do something that would, I felt in the moment, would alleviate my pain, the pain of my anxiety. But usually that thing, that sort of band-aid I slapped on the problem, wasn't a great long-term fix. And so we really try to think about what is a great long-term fix on this? What's going to solve the underlying concerns of each person, each client, and then we'll try to put that into place once we've gotten them to a safe place. And I mean, I don't necessarily mean dangerous, but emotionally safe, financially safe, so that there's a place of landing where someone can go, okay, now I can really think about this.
So you were saying, yes, it's important also to take time to really think through the details and the decisions. So the process, how long does it typically take when you walk through your clients with a collaborative divorce?
Well, it typically takes about 9 months.
Mhm.
And, so for anybody listening, that's not a promise. I can't say, it could be less, it could be more. It really depends on how complicated it gets. And when it's complicated in divorce, it's usually the feelings and not the finances that make it complicated. And so really how long it takes to unwind that the conflict dynamic in the family is what really is a challenge sometimes, but also people's schedules and all of that. And in a collaborative divorce or in a mediation or basically in any out of court setting, the timing is based on what works for the family and what works for the partners here, and rather than being on a court schedule or subject to a discovery schedule that's been set by a court and in a order.
Gotcha. So then, if someone were interested to engage you, how do your fees work? How do you typically, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like most law firms, we work on a retainer, depending on the level of complexity is the size of the retainer, and we bill hourly against that retainer. We do that on twice a month basis so that people see exactly where they are and exactly what's going on. And we try to work with our clients so that the least costly person in our office is doing the work that they're qualified to do so that people get as much value as possible. But while we're talking about fees, I think it's really important for really people to think about, thinking about engaging an attorney, about value versus cost. What am I getting for my money instead of what's the actual amount of money I'm spending? Because oftentimes it can be, I don't know if your expression familiar with the expression penny wise and pound foolish. It's really a good idea. This is going to cost something to get divorced, and no one wants to spend money on getting divorced. No one wants to spend money on legal fees. I hate to spend money on legal fees, but every once in a while, there's a reason their lawyers exist, and you're negotiating a deal that's going to probably be, for most people, the biggest deal of your entire life. And so making sure that you're hiring someone who really understands what's most important to you, has the skills to get you to that place if it's at all possible, and is going to take the time to understand who you are, I think makes the most sense.
Gotcha. Now, it's interesting. Um, when I was looking at your website too, explain a little bit more on the difference between divorce and legal separation.
Yeah. So, states vary, but in New York and in many states, uh, when once you what we're looking to do in any negotiation, and let me understand, let me let you and your listeners understand that in most divorces settle. So in New York, 97% of divorcing people settle, meaning they sign their own deal before a judge makes a decision after a trial. Nationwide, that percentage is 95%, 95%. So the chances are that you're going to come to terms before a judge does it for you. Now, you might do that on the courthouse steps, in the hallway at the courthouse. I mean, this isn't to say that everybody does it, sitting around drinking coffee in a conference room, because that's not necessarily the case, although perhaps they could. So what those people do is sign a document, which is a contract that says this is what the parenting is going to be. This is how we're going to divide our assets. This is child support. This is alimony, or whatever language is used in the jurisdiction in which they are. And once you sign that document and you live apart, separate and apart under that document, you're legally separated. And you will stay legally separated until the end of time, until someone does something to file divorce papers. And so if you're settling in the courthouse steps, that's probably already been done, and you just kind of go through the process. But what's the difference? The difference is one, if you are legally separated, you cannot remarry because you're not divorced, you are married. So let's be clear. You could file a tax return, married filing jointly, legally separated. You cannot do that when you're married, and there may be a tax advantage one way or the other, and that's something that each person should talk to their tax advisor about. And three, and perhaps the most relevant to many people, is that many health insurance plans will allow legally separated people to stay on a family health insurance plan. Not all, so you should check with your own health insurance plan and administrator. But if you can, that can be a significant savings and benefit to the family as an ongoing economic unit. But most people make the decision whether or not to get divorced or stay legally separated based on the emotions of it. I'm not quite ready to be divorced, or well, I really want to get this over with.
Hmm. Well, this has been very informative, Catherine. I appreciate that, and just be able to that you're openly, educating people on this process, because I know, other law firms maybe out there charging just to be able to give this kind of preliminary information. So we appreciate you doing that, especially for our audience of entrepreneurs and SMB owners. I mean, when they're going through turmoil in their marriages, obviously it just spills over into their company, their business life. So being able to just have somebody, an expert like you, to be able to walk them through what this process could look like. So it's just to help our audience get to know you a little bit better as a person. Any fun facts that you want to share about you?
Sure. I'm a very serious dressage rider. Do you know what that is?
No idea.
Horseback riding. And in the horse sport in the Olympics, there's the jumping and the prancing. It's the
Uh-huh.
prancing. Sometimes maybe you see it
Ah.
on the television, or, when they're advertising the upcoming Olympic stuff. So I'm very serious and competitive horseback rider in the dressage area. Another thing is I've got 5 kids.
Oh my
Uh,
word.
It's a yours, mine, and ours situation. So we each had two children
Mhm.
and a dog when we got married, but that was many years ago. And we had a child together. So we raised all those kids together. So I certainly understand what it is to be divorced with young children, to repartner, and to blend our families together. And in fact, my own divorce is what led me on this mission, got me started on this mission to help me people divorce with dignity because I myself didn't feel like I could continue doing what I was doing in a traditional firm once I sat in the client's chair. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
those
So you
are
can really empathize what they're going through, having gone through it yourself. And
exactly.
what's the best way for our audience to get in touch with you?
They should check out our website. You've been mentioning it. It's miller-law.com, miller-law.com, or give us a call, 914-738-7765.
Okay, wonderful. Well, there you have it, our conversation today with Katherine Miller. And I just wanted to thank you, Katherine, for taking the time to have this conversation with us. And for everybody else, we'll be tuning in for our next episode.
Thank you.